is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we are going to attempt to compare four of the most common micro compact pistols on the market so we can determine what the best choice is for you. We have the Glock 43X, the Glock 48, the Springfield Hellcat, and the Sig P365. Now, if you are a Glock, Springfield, or Sig fanboy, I am going to say some nice things about all of these guns and some not so nice things about all these guns. Just my opinion. Try not to be too butthurt. Before we get into it, I need to do my quick disclosure. Yes, I work in the firearms industry. I work for Enforce. That will not affect this video in any way, shape, or form because these opinions are mine and my opinions only. Don't really have any relationship to Sig, Springfield, or Glock outside of I met them at trade shows before and a couple social media posts, likes, comments, that type of stuff. But besides that, no connection to them. The Sig is mine. I bought that with my hard-earned money a few years ago. Both the Springfield and both of the Glocks were lent to me by my friends at the Elite Indoor Gun Range, local country club here in Southern Rhode Island. If you're looking at a micro compact pistol, I'm going to assume you are looking at for concealed carry purposes, maybe home defense. If that is the case, I also recommend you check out USCCA. They are one of the channel sponsors. I have been a member of USCCA long before they were a channel sponsor though. And they offer self-defense education, self-defense training, and self-defense insurance. Click the link down in the description, see if it's right for you. So this is how we're going to do this. We're going to go feature by feature, spec by spec. We're going to compare them. I'll tell you the pros, the cons, what I like, what I don't like. Whichever gun is my favorite for that specific feature, I'm going to give 3 points. The second gun, I'm going to give 2 points. And then the last place gun, I'm going to give 1 point. Whichever firearm has the most point at the end, that will be deemed the champion of the micro compact pistols. So, without hesitation, let's get into the magazine. This here is the Sig P365 magazine. In the beginning, Glock had the Glock 43. That was a micro compact pistol that only held 6 rounds. Sig came out with the same size pistol, but they figured out a way to get 10 rounds into a very small micro compact pistol. The Sig is metal, high quality, made in America, and they also have a 12 and a 15 round magazine. The Hellcat, not to be outdone, after the Sig came out with the 10+1, they came out with the same size gun and an 11+1, and they also give you a 13+1. Again, they're metal, they are not made in America, they're made in Croatia. So, small advantage for the Springfield because the standard magazine in the higher capacity one is 1 round bigger than the Sig. Now, both of the Glocks have the same size frame and take the same magazine. The frames are a little bit longer on the Glocks than they are on the Sig and on the Hellcat. And they have less rounds. These only hold 10+1. So the Glock is bigger and holds less rounds, which is a negative for Glock, no doubt. Now, if you like the Glock and you want to go down that road, Shield Arms does make a metal 15+1 magazine. You do need to exchange the mag release. If you get the Shield Arms magazines, you need to also get a metal mag release. But 15+1 in a gun that size is great. 10+1, not so sure. So I am going to give the winner of this category to the Hellcat. 3 points for them. Second place I'm going to give to Sig. And unfortunately, Glock, this category you come in last place. This is going to be a rather long video, so I need a coffee break. Alright, let's talk about the grip, shape, texture, feeling, all that stuff. The Sig texture is not bad. When I feel them, I always think, man, that needs to be more aggressive. And I shoot them, and I'm like, okay, it's fine. It has little squares. I don't know if they're triangles, little squares, whatever they are. Very, very similar to the Gen 5 grip. If you felt the Gen 5, the texture is very, very similar. On all my guns, I hate it when there's polymer up here. I wish they continue the grip texture up there, which is not the end of the world. These small Glocks feel significantly better than a full-size Glock to me, like a 19 or 17 or whatever. I like the slimline grip better than the larger grip. The thing that I always complain about with Glocks, though, is this Glock hump. Lots of people like it. I do not like it. I wish Glock offered a flat back strap, and then with the additional back straps, you could add the Glock hump back. If they did that, I would be the biggest Glock fanboy ever in the history of Glock fanboys, but they don't. The Sig has a much more aggressive texture than the Glock, and I like it a lot better. It really locks your hand in place, especially when you're firing these small guns. These really, really small guns are much harder to shoot accurately, quickly, and at distance than a bigger gun is. So I love the texture on the Sig. It is aggressive, but it's not too aggressive where it's going to tear up your skin at all. Again, up top here, you do still have this slick polymer, which I'm not a great fan of, but the shape of the grip is excellent. The feeling of it is good. The angle is good. I'm a very, very big fan of the Sig grip. I think the shape of it is the best out of all three of them, but the texture of it, I got to give the texture to the Hellcat. Very, very similar type of grip, type of texture to the Sig Sauer. It's very grippy, but it's not too aggressive. Up here on the top, they did continue the grip up here. I don't know why, but I really like the way that feels. I know it's kind of strange. They also have 2 memory notches on both sides of the guns for you lefties and you righties. So you just a reminder of where that trigger finger should be when you're not firing. So once again, I'm going to give the grip to the Hellcat. That's going to be first place. I will give second place to the Sig, and sorry Glock again, you come in third. More coffee. Go juice. It's very early in the morning when I'm recording this, if you're wondering. Alright, magazine releases. None of them are bad. They're all pretty good. Just keep in mind, with the Sig and the Springfield, because the grips are so small, you really got to get a hand out of the way when you're dropping that magazine or you're inserting it. The Glock grip is bigger, so it's not as much of an issue. But the magazine release itself, the Hellcat is by far the smallest, and for me, the hardest to reach. Again, it's not bad at all. The Sig is a little bit different, a little bit better. It's a little bigger, it's a little further back, and I really like the mag release on the Sig. However, my favorite is going to be the Glock. The same release as the Gen 5 pistols, and it is even bigger than the other two. It's in a better spot, it's textured nicely, it's flat, and I can reach this one easier than any of the others. So, mag release goes to Glock. Second place again is the Sig, and last place is the Hellcat. Sliding on up to the triggers, Glock has a lot of good things going for it, but triggers usually aren't one of them. Their triggers are not bad, they're basic, they're combat effective triggers, kind of like FN. Very tactile, very audible, but they're not the softest and smoothest triggers in the world. I do like the wall. Like after you come up with that little bit of take up, it has a pretty solid wall, which I really, really like. The break is Glock. If you've ever shot a Glock, you know exactly what I mean. And then the release is a little on the long side, but it is very tactile and very audible. Now the Sig has a good wall as well. The take up is super easy. It's the light. The take up to get to that wall is the lightest out of all of them. You kind of have a mushy break there. It's mushy during dry fire more than it is on live fire for some reason, if that makes sense. And then on your reset, it's very audible. It's probably more audible than the Glock, but it's not as tactile as the Glock. So I definitely like the Sig trigger more than the Glock trigger. And third but not least, the Hellcat. I think the Hellcat has the best trigger out of all three of these. It is a flat face trigger with a little shoe on the end. You have a little bit of take up, good wall, very clean, crisp break. And then the reset is definitely audible, little audible, very tactile. You know, I could call it a tie between these two, the Springfield here and the Sig, because it's extremely close. In the video I did comparing them, I think I did give them a tie. But I'm going to give the Hellcat a very, very small advantage. There's going to be no ties in this video. Second place again, Sig. Sig is like second place with everything. And then unfortunately, Glock is going to come in last with the trigger. Last sip of coffee. That's very, very sad. All right, accessory rail. Now, both the 43X and the 48 here does not have an accessory rail. However, the new versions of these guns do have one. So I'm not going to hold it against them that I didn't get the latest version. I couldn't get my hands on one. So we're going to judge them based off the new versions, just to be fair. The new ones do have a kind of proprietary accessory rail on there. It's not a standard 1913 size. It's a little bit more narrow. I understand why Glock did it. These guns are so skinny, they didn't want to grow the rail out wide for it, so I get it. With that said, you will be a little limited on these guns as far as what lights and lasers and doohickeys you can put on here, but at least the new ones do have a rail. Now the Sig P365 and the 365 XL, which is the big brother of this gun, both have accessory rails. They are proprietary, no cutouts at all. They're not 1913. There are some lights out there for the guns, not quite as many. Nice thing, if you have the XL, the big version, there's adapters you can get that snaps on the proprietary rail and gives you a standard 1913 rail. And if you do that, then you can add quite a few different lights, lasers, even full-size lights if you want. Now the Hellcat. The Hellcat rail, like all of them, is very, very small. These are tiny guns, and kind of strange that they have accessory rails to begin with. But light companies are keeping up and making lights for these really, really small guns because they're so popular. The rail on this one is a 1913 rail, so it's a very, very standard rail, just super short. Has one single cutout, and again, you are limited just because it's so small, but you'll have more light options for the Hellcat than you will any of the other ones, I think, just because it is a standard 1913 rail. With that said, Hellcat, #1 for accessory rail. Sig, again, coming in second. And I'll give Glock last place because it is a proprietary rail and it's the newest. Now the slide release. The slide release on the Hellcat is very, very small. It's very, very close to the pistol. It doesn't stick out at all. It's not extended. It's really, really small, which I thought it would be a good thing because I wouldn't ride it. But if you saw my Hellcat review or the video I did comparing the Hellcat to the Sig, every single time, not every, 90% of the time when I shoot this gun, I ride that slide release and the slide does not lock back on the last round. And that was very, very frustrating to me. So I wish it was a little different spot or a little different shape or something, because I rode it every single time. The Sig is a little bit further forward, so it's a tiny bit harder to reach, not bad at all. The good thing is I have never rode that slide release before in my life, so that slide release is very, very good. Now, the Glock pistols, these two have different slide releases. The 43 is much smaller and much tighter to the frame of the gun, and it's a little bit harder to reach. The Glock 48 here is much bigger. There's like a ledge on the outside of it, and it's much easier to use it as a slide release. So being this one is a little bit better, I don't know if it's a one-off or they're all like this, but being this one is a much better, we're going to compare this one, and this by far is the best slide release out of all 4 pistols. It's easiest to reach, it's in a good spot, don't ride it, and with that ledge on there, I can easily drop the slide and use it as a slide release when I want. So, slide release. First place goes to Glock. Second place, once again, goes to the Sig. And then last place will go the Hellcat. No more coffee. Had to switch to water. Talking so much makes me thirsty. Alright, optics ready systems. Let's talk about the optics. The Sig does not come optics ready. This optics cut you see on here was something I had done aftermarket because I'm getting a Holosun 507K. The big brother of this gun, the XL version, does come or is an optics ready platform. And I have a feeling Sig's going to come out with a regular 365 that's already optics cut because, as you see, some of their competition has. The Hellcat is available in 2 different versions. It is available with or without an optics plate. The optics one is only $30 more, so I highly recommend you get the optics one. Spend the extra 20, 30, 40 bucks, whatever that ends up being in street price, and much better than having to send it off in the future if you ever want to. So 2 different versions of that. The Glocks now have 2 different versions as well. Again, when these first came out, they had no rail, no optics plate. Now they have an MOS version, modular optics system, that gives you that rail that I spoke about and gives you an optics cut for those micro compact pistols. So, with all that said, let's give first place to the Hellcat because they were the first ones to come out with 2 versions of the pistol that was optics ready. I'm going to give second place to the Glock because they do have a version of each pistol that's optics ready and not optics ready, and they were the second one to do it. And I think I would have to give third place to the Sig. While the XL version does come with it, you cannot get any version of the P365 that's optics cut. So as far as your optics, they're going to have to be in last place. Now, as far as the slides, all of them have some sort of loaded chamber indicator. If you're into that thing, they all have front and rear cocking serrations, and I think they're all just about the same as far as effectiveness. All of the slides have some sort of tinifer, nitrite, melanite finish, whatever these companies want to call them. They're all typically just as good as one another as far as durability and not rusting and not having any problems. The only difference in the slide is going to be how much pressure it takes to rack the slide. The Hellcat is by far much harder to rack the slide than the other two brands. I mean, it's significant. I can do it. It's not hard. It's not a big deal. But if you have grip strength issues, I would try to feel the slide tension before you get the Hellcat. The Sig is definitely easier, probably half as much pressure to bring the slide to the rear. Again, front and rear serrations, good finish, loaded chamber indicator. And the Glock, however, is significantly easier even than the Sig. It is by far the easiest gun to rack, front, rear serrations, loaded chamber indicator, all that thing. So as far as the slide, first place is going to have to go to Glock. Once again, the Sig will be in second, and the Hellcat comes in third. As far as sights, that's going to be a very, very easy category for me to judge. The Glock plastic sights I'm not a fan of. They break too often. On this G48, when I took it out of the bag that the Elite Indoor Range gave it to me in, the front sight is cracked already. And I'm just not a huge fan of Glock plastic sights. If you're going to buy one with the metal sights or replace them. Do yourself a favor so they don't break on you when you need them. With that said, I do like the design and the style of the Glock sights. It has a squared off rear sight with a white U around it. The front sight is a big white dot. They're not night sights at all, so it's going to be tough to see them at night. And a ledge for one-handed manipulations as well. I just don't like plastic sights. The Hellcat has a couple advantages. The front sight does have a tritium vial in there, so you can see it at night. Around that tritium is a bright yellowish, maybe kind of greenish, but more yellow, bright colored circle, so you can pick it up good at the day. They are metal sights. They have ledge for one-handed manipulations. The thing I don't like about them is the rear sight is a U-notch, and I hate U-notch sights. I don't shoot them very well. I don't shoot them very accurate. I know lots of people love them. They're not bad at all. It's just me personally, I don't care for them. So the Sig is going to be my favorite. The front sight is a bright green circle. Inside there has tritium. The rear sight is squared off, which I like. And also the rear sight has two more tritium vials. So at night you'll have a 3-dot setup. Well, I'll have a red dot, but most people will have a 3-dot setup. Which is what I prefer. So first place goes to the Sig, second place goes to the Hellcat, and Glock, stop putting plastic sights on your guns. Now this category here is a very, very minor category. I debated not even including it, but I said, I know lots of people care about how you take the pistols apart and if you have to pull the trigger or not. I get asked that question fairly often, so I decided to include it. The way you take these pistols down, you lock the slide to the rear, obviously make sure the gun is unloaded. With the Hellcat, the takedown lever here, you have to rotate it up and it's pretty stiff. Send the slide forward, pull the trigger, pointing it in a safe direction, and then the slide comes off. Oh man, that is stiff. Especially with my messed up elbow. Glock is very, very similar. Again, make sure it's unloaded. You pull the slide to the rear about 1/4 of an inch. You pull down on the takedown levers, pull the trigger, and the slide comes off. Now you can pull the trigger before or after you pull the slide to the rear. That's just how I do it. The Sig is very similar. Again, make sure it's unloaded. Lock the slide to the rear. Pull down on the takedown lever, which is significantly easier than the Hellcat. And then when you send the slide forward, you do not have to pull the trigger. So, if you care about that type of thing, the Sig may be the best one for you. So first place Sig on takedown, very close second Glock, and third place will be the Hellcat. Now let's talk about a very important category, which is shootability. I shot all of these guns a ton. I did as many concealed carry and common drills as I possibly could. I did the build drill, I did a failure drill, I was running plate racks, I did transitions, a lot from concealment, reloads. I'm doing a review right now on the best way to carry when you're exercising. So I drew all of these guns from like different belly bands and different ways to carry, put rounds on range. I mean, I did a bunch. Another thing I did a lot of is I loaded all 4 guns and I shot them all back to back to back. A couple rounds with the Hellcat, a couple rounds with the Sig, a couple rounds with one Glock, a couple rounds with the other Glock. And went back and forth through several magazines just so I could really get a feel for them and compare them head to head. All of them shoot well. All of them shoot good. None of them are bad shooters at all. They're all more accurate than I can be. There's no doubt there. The Hellcat was probably my least favorite here. It is very, very small. It's a little on the snappy side. Again, still much better than other micro compact pistols. But out of the 4 guns here, this was definitely my least favorite. Second, I'm going to have to go with the Glock. The hump made it a little bit more difficult, and when I come out, I'm a little high. I'm not quite that high, but I'm a little high when I come out, especially if I shoot the Sig or the Hellcat and I come out with the Glock. I'm up a little bit, and I had to compensate for that with that Glock hump. But the recoil sensation is very, very pleasant. Shootability, easy to track the sights and absorb that recoil. So shootability wise, this is definitely second. If it didn't have that Glock hump, it actually may be better than the Sig. But by far, my favorite is the Sig. I think the recoil, there's something about the P365, if you shot it, you know what I mean? It feels like you're shooting a much bigger gun for some reason. At distance, at close up, speed, doesn't really matter. Shootability is by far the best. The Sig is by far the best out of all 4 of these pistols, in my opinion. So first place Sig, second place to both the Glocks, and then third place to the Hellcat. Another very important category is going to be durability and reliability, and I didn't really know how to judge and how to gauge this. As a brand, Sig is known for their durability and reliability. When the P365 first came out, it did have some issues, but those have been worked out a long time ago. The Hellcat, it seems like it's been pretty good, but I haven't done any long-term testings besides the Sig, so I'm not going to give any points in this category. I'm just going to say, in my opinion, I think all 4 pistols are durable and reliable on average. Of course, some people will have issues with anything, but on average, I wouldn't worry about carrying any of these guns as far as durability and reliability. However, modularity, it's a smaller category. It's not as important, but the Sig does something that the other ones don't that's very, very unique. The internals, the fire control unit lifts right out. You pull this pin out, the fire control unit comes out, and it allows you to swap the firearm to different grips. Both the 365 and the 320 have this ability, and if you want different sized grips, different color grips, different styles, there's a bunch of different companies who make grips for these. It gives you the ability to swap from one to the other. So modularity, I am definitely going to give some points to Sig, first place. I'm going to give second to Glock. I know they're not as modular, but the aftermarket support is there, and you can swap slides and do different things with these guns. So there's a little bit of modularity. I know I'm reaching. And then last place, I'll give the Hellcat there. Not the best category to judge, but because the Sig has the modularity so much, I had to give some points and a nod to Sig for that. Now, one thing that is easy to judge is where these pistols are made. Some people care, some people don't, but something that's made in America is very, very important to me. Most Springfields are made in Croatia. These Glocks were made in Austria. I know lots of Glocks are made in Georgia, but these were made in Austria, the new ones that first came out. I don't know if the new versions of these were made in America or not. I couldn't find that. However, I do know the Sig is made very close to me up in New Hampshire. So, big points for Sig. We're going to go first place Sig, second place Glock, because a lot of their pistols are made here, and then last place to the Springfield. Taking a look at all the dimensions here, lots of numbers. The Sig and the Hellcat are pretty much the same size and the same weight. Very, very close. I know they're a little bit different, but for the most part, they're exactly the same. Both the Glock 43X and the 48 are similar on the frame, are the same on the frame. The only difference is the slide length. The 48 has a longer slide than the 43X, and that makes it a little bit heavier. I think there's a big advantage to the Hellcat and the Sig here, because if you want a very small micro compact pistol, the height of them, the butt of the gun that sticks out, that's the hardest to conceal, is the shortest, and they hold more rounds, or the same rounds or more rounds. So we're going to give the dimensions. It's real personal preference. I'm not going to give any points here at all, but the Sig and the Springfield are definitely smaller. They hold the same amount of rounds, if not more, where the Glock is a little bit bigger. If you want more rounds, you have to go to an aftermarket magazine. You have to go to the Shield Arm magazine to hold the same amount of rounds. So, overall, I think all four guns are good. All four guns are durable, reliable, shoot fine, and if you have a brand preference or if there's a feature I mentioned that you like, then go for that gun. There's nothing wrong with it. Overall, if I was going to get one though, the Hellcat would be my last choice. Again, nothing wrong with it. Please don't think I'm saying anything bad. It's not a bad gun at all. Just the shootability, the slide release, and the other things I mentioned, just not my favorite gun. Second is going to be the Glock 48. Again, not a bad gun at all, but if I was going to get this, I would get the MOS edition. I would change the sights. I'd get the Shield Arm magazine. I'd get a light. I'd get an optic. And now I've spent more on accessories than I spent in the gun. The 43X, same idea. If I was going to buy this gun, I would change the sights. I'd get a light. I'd get an optic and do all that in the Shield Arm magazine. I just think the 43X shot better than the 48. I don't know why, but I enjoyed the recoil sensation and I was able to shoot it better than the 48. My favorite is still going to be the Sig P365, regardless of how these points came out here. I don't know. I don't add up the points beforehand, so I have no idea who won. You guys know. Well, I'll figure it out when I edit. But my favorite is still the P365. Yes, I am 100% biased. I know this is my gun. I own it. But before I bought this, I shot a lot of these guns, and I just think the Sig shoots better. There's some things that the Glock does better. There's some things the Hellcat's better. Yes, like I said, they're all good guns. But for shootability and overall performance, I'm going to take the Sig P365. I can shoot this much faster, much further, and much more accurate than any of these other pistols on the table. Before you guys go, let me quickly thank the Elite Indoor Gun Range and the Peacedale Shooting Preserve for loaning all three of these guns to me so I could do a review. If you're in southeastern New England, definitely check them out. They have a nice country club, indoor range, and a really, really awesome sporting clays course. Let me also thank you guys for watching, because it is greatly appreciated. If you are looking to support the channel, the best way to support the channel is on Patreon. If you're not able or willing to donate a few dollars per month, no big deal. Just keep the likes and the comments coming, please, because they really help me out. Now, if you want to see what videos I come out with next, consider subscribing to the channel and enabling the bell notification. This way, YouTube will hopefully notify you when I come out with a new video. If you want to see what those videos are in real time, you can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and now on Parler. The links to all three are down in the video description. I mentioned it earlier in the video, but we do have one very important channel sponsor. It's USCCA. Again, I've been a member of USCCA for a very long time. They offer a lot of really good self-defense insurance, self-defense training, self-defense education, not only virtual, but also live fire training as well, certifications. They do a lot of giveaways. And then, God forbid, you ever need to defend yourself with a firearm or a pointy stick or a bag of gummy bears. They're going to be there to help you with bail, lawyer fees, civil fees, etc., etc. One last time, thank you guys for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Peace.